Our school began its classes after the long holiday of Christmas. The corridors were once again flooding with the laughter of young boys and girls. I was happy to see my best friend after a long Christmas holiday. We went to have lunch in the cafeteria and shared our experiences with our holidays. The school I study is one of the biggest schools in our city. We had long hallways, huge classes, and a wide playground. I often walked to school with my best friend Matt, who lives nearby my house. One day, when we were walking toward school, Matt pointed to a poster hanging on a nearby tree. It was a poster of a man. The headline read, "Wanted, Dead or Alive," and the bottom line, it mentioned, "Escaped Convict." We discussed our entire way to school that this person has surely done something really bad for being on the list of a wanted criminal. After reaching the school, our principal announced everyone to gather in the playground. A group of local cops was also present there. At first, none could guess what was going on, but then our principal told everyone that the cops are looking for a highly dangerous criminal, so we are being instructed to call 911 or tell our adults if we ever spot this guy. Also, the teachers became very conscious of every kid in school. They told our parents to come get us after school when possible. For those who travel alone, should go home in groups and not stay out after dark. I became a bit upset as I just got back to school and wanted to play basketball after school hours with my friends. Our coach canceled all our basketball practice for the alarming situation and shifted it to an early morning schedule. I am not an early riser, but for the sake of basketball, I scheduled my routine accordingly. The practice used to begin at 6 a.m. sharp, hence, being late resulted into punishments. Our school often pressurized on cleanliness and community services, so for those who came late into practices, were often given tasks such as swiping school corridor or working in the cafeteria or arranging books in library and so on. One night, Matt and I had a sleepover at one of our friends' house. We decided to play a video game before going to bed. Everyone planned to play for an hour as we had basketball practice the next morning. After an hour, Matt and my friend Jack went to bed.
Bro, why they in the same bed though? Continue.
But I wanted to play a bit more. I told them I will wake them up at the right time so they don't have to worry about me. But in the morning, I obviously couldn't wake up on time. It was 6:30 a.m. when I opened my eyes. I realized my friends have already left for their practices, and I cursed them from my heart for not waking me up. When I reached the ground, I saw them warming up and laughing at me. I knew they played a hideous prank on me so they could see me getting punished. I ran to our coach and started to apologize. Though being one of the coach's favorites, the coach told me that I will be punished like everyone else. The rules are the same for everyone. Without arguing much, I agreed with him. The coach told me to clean the backside of our playground and get the tools from the school basement. The backside of our school ground was a popular smoking zone among the high school seniors, hence, it was
They back there getting it in, trapping, selling dope, stabbing, shooting, all that.
dirty all the time. Every day, our sweeper used to clean that area after school hours, and the next day, the seniors used to mess it up again. I put my backpack on the ground and walked towards the school building to get the tools from the basement. As I reached the school basement and opened the door, a dark hallway down the stairs stood in front of me. I slowly walked down and turned on the light switch underneath the passage. The basement is generally filled with school supplies, extra chairs and tables, and all other stationary stuff. The mop and bucket were kept in the corner, so I walked to get it. As I took the tools and was about to leave, I noticed a bunch of tattered clothes lying on the basement ground. There were a bunch of plastic water bottles lying beside them, too. The basement was not very tidy anyway, so I thought these are nothing but some old school junk. One thing that stuck in my mind is the foul smell of burnt tobacco. The smell was floating all around the basement. I told myself, someone might be secretly smoking here, but who can that be in this early morning? As I kept thinking, standing alone, I realized I am wasting my time and that I have to get back to the cleaning so that I can join the practice as soon as possible. I got upstairs and closed the basement door. One other weird thing I noticed is that the lock of the basement door was broken.
Oh,
I
shit.
thought to let the coach know about it in case students are sneaking in to smoke there, which is really not safe because the school can catch fire if they leave burning buds down there.
Man, stop ratting.
As I was walking towards the backside of the playground and saw Matt and Jack still making fun of me, I ignored them and went ahead. The backside of our school playground is secluded, which is why it is a popular smoking spot among the students. All of our school garbage bags are kept here, so the place always carries a stinking odor. As I swept the burnt buds from the ground, I kept cursing my friends even more. The smell around me made me nauseous. Still, I kept on doing my job. I didn't realize what time it was, but I was almost done just when I heard something. It was coming from the corner where the garbage bags are kept. First, I thought it might be a squirrel or some small animal, so I dumped the dirt into a nearby dustbin and decided to head back to the playground. As I turned back and took my first step, I heard a terrible sound that heightened my senses and fear. It was the sound of someone eating vigorously, as if someone was munching food like a hungry dog. I looked back to see what was going on, and what I noticed made my heart skip out of my throat in fear. There was a guy sitting behind those garbage bags facing his back towards me. He was eating the rotten leftovers from the cafeteria from those garbage bags. I could see white worms crawling down his elbow as he put his hand inside those bags to take out those rotten foods. I know I should have been smart and ran to tell the coach about this guy, but I made a really dumb move. I called out to the guy and said in a broken voice, Hey, are you all right? You shouldn't be here." The guy suddenly stopped and looked back at me. I never knew what hell looks like, but when he looked at me, I felt what hell is. His eyes were red and white worms were hanging from his mouth. He was chomping a bad piece of half-eaten burger. I immediately recognized his face. It was the convict who broke prison. He suddenly got up and pulled a sharp knife from his pocket and said in a cold, horrifying voice, "I am going to kill you, and then burn your body, and then eat you like these worms." I was beyond terrified. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The man started to walk towards me in a feeble way. I noticed his one leg was injured as he kept limping towards me. Luckily, my coach came to check on me, and as soon as he saw that guy, he too recognized him. He immediately jumped on that man and pushed me away. The man started to hit my coach, but he was too weak, and our coach is a strong, healthy man. He knocked that guy out with one single punch. I started to scream and call for help. All my friends came running and noticed the entire vicious situation. The cops were called immediately, and they came and arrested the escaped convict. Our school was searched thoroughly, and it came out that the guy broke into the school basement. He might have stayed the entire Christmas down there to save himself from the cold outside. The clothes that I saw were his. He injured himself while jumping the jail fences, which is why he was limping. Not just these. I read in the newspaper the next morning about his arrest. The man was convicted with charges of first-degree murder. He burnt his neighbor's house, and when the police got there, he was seen eating the burnt flesh from his dead neighbor's body. I am grateful that my coach didn't get hurt while saving me. The more I think about that day, the more I understand that he didn't just threaten me that day. He actually meant it. If my coach didn't come back to check on me, he might have done the same thing to me, which he did to his neighbor. I really hope he stays behind bars forever, and we never meet again. Come here. I used to work as a security guard in an elementary school. The school had a cleaning lady. Her name was Miss Brown. She was really good with the kids. No matter how many times the kids leave muddy footprints on the hallway, she will always clean it up with her caring, gentle smile. She often gave kids her homemade snacks during recess. The school had a small playground in the middle. On its left stood the classroom, and on its right stood the principal's office, teacher's room, and a small room for us, the school workers. The school teachers also loved Miss Brown. She brought homemade food for them too. The workers' room had a few chairs, a table to keep our stuff, and a big freezer. Before turning into an elementary school, this place used to be a medical supply store. Hence, medicines were being stacked inside the freezer. But after the school opened, no one used that freezer, and it ended up being the dirty, old furniture. Sometimes, night shifts were assigned to me whenever there was a long holiday in school. The trustees didn't want any wanderer or random people inside the school property. Hence, I was appointed to keep an eye on the school. During these times, I often sneaked in a few cans of beer and kept them inside the freezer to keep them chilled. Once, Miss Brown found a beer can and teased me about it. I got really embarrassed. I requested her not to tell anyone. She agreed and told me to be careful about it from the next time. Miss Brown lived with her husband. They didn't have any children. Her husband was a heavy alcoholic. I knew he treated her in a bad way because she always ended up being sad whenever we talked about her marriage. Sometimes, I even saw bruises and burn marks on her hands. I felt bad for her, but I never said anything regarding this. I still regret not stepping up about this. God knows if I did, I could have stopped this horrifying tragedy from happening. One Monday morning, when I reached school, I noticed Miss Brown was swiping the corridor. She was looking really happy and peaceful after a long time. I went to wish her good morning, to which she replied back with a big smile on her face. I thought something good happened to her this weekend, so I asked out of general curiosity. Miss Brown, you look so happy. What's the big good news? She smiled at me and replied, I have finally managed to make my husband get rid of his drinking habit. I felt happy for her, thinking at least now the man will stop torturing her out of a fit of drunkenness. The day went happily, just like always. She cooked meatloaf for all the school workers and teachers. She gave me 2 big meatloaves separately. Everyone ate them, and once again, praised her cooking skills. At night when I got home, I was just about to cook dinner when I remembered I had meatloaves in my bag made by Miss Brown. I took out the meatloaves, microwaved it to eat.
Mr. Brown.
As I took the first bite, I realized why everyone went crazy for meatloaves today. It tasted extremely delicious. The meat was so tender and juicy that it almost melted inside my mouth. I saved some of it for later and went to bed after a long, tiring day and a tasty dinner. I fell asleep instantly. The next day, when I went to school, I went to the workers' room to thank Miss Brown. Just when I saw her putting a lock on the freezer, I asked her,
You want to make beats like this? It's a vibe. Let's make some.
"What's going on here, Miss Brown?" She looked at me and said the freezer got all heated up and started releasing smoke this morning, so she went to the principal to inform about this incident. The principal has instructed to unplug it and lock the door so that no accident can occur due to any short circuit or electrical malfunction. I felt a bit upset thinking, my beer stash is gone now. Miss Brown used to bring foods for everyone 2 to 3 times in a month, but within a few weeks, she was always cooking something and bringing it for either the children or the teachers. All her dishes were very tasty, and the meat was so good. I once asked her from which market she buys meat. She gave me the address of a local shop. I bought their meat many times, but it never tasted like her dishes, no matter how delicately I tried to cook it. I gave up, accepting that her cooking skills are definitely better than mine. Something weird happened one day on the playground. I was walking on the playground while the kids were playing around, just when Miss Brown came and distributed some homemade mini meat pie amongst them. The kids started chattering in joy and eating the pies excitedly. I smiled at her as she looked at me. As I started to walk towards my spot, I overheard a conversation of 2 kids standing close to me. One kid said in a disgusted voice, "Yuck! There's a string of hair in my pie." To which the other kid replied, "Mine looks good." I told the kid not to eat that pie and asked his friend to share some with him. Miss Brown came to us and I explained the entire matter to her. She became highly embarrassed and said, "My hair is falling a lot these days. It really sucks getting old." She then apologized to that kid and threw away his piece of pie immediately and gave him a new one. The matter got sorted and we all got back to our usual work. One night, I went to a local bar in town, and after hanging out there for a while, I decided to head back home. To reach home early, I took the shortcut way, which was right in front of the school. It was a chilled winter night, hence, the roads were almost empty. As I reached near the school, I saw Miss Brown coming out of the school gates. Seeing her at the dark, empty school premises surprised me a lot. I stood behind the nearby tree and watched her walking away. She had a big garbage bag in her hand. I got really suspicious, and I waited until she left the area. Once she was out of sight, I went inside the school. The school was completely silent. I wandered around for a bit, just when I heard a machinic sound coming from the workers' room. I walked inside the room and surprisingly noticed the freezer was plugged in and running absolutely fine. I remembered Miss Brown telling me that it doesn't work anymore. I felt even more weird thinking, why would she lie to me on such a simple matter? Did she want me to keep away from using it? I tried to open the freezer door.
Fuck this shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks, don't mind me.
The next day,
I'ma just
I
grab
secretly
myself
stole the
and
key of the
leave.
freezer from Miss
Excuse me,
Brown's bag.
please.
I wanted to do this job as quietly as possible, so I waited for the right moment. Our school was heading towards the sports day next week, so all the workers were busy with preparations. Miss Brown went to the store to buy flags and ropes with some teachers, just when I went to the workers' room and unlocked the freezer. As soon as I opened the door, my heart drowned in horror. I felt like I am going to faint right at that moment. Smoke was gushing out of the freezer as it was put to the highest cooling mode. And the reason behind that was lying vividly in front of me. There was a dead man inside the freezer. He was cut in half. There were no signs of his lower body. He seemed dead for quite a long time now. I guessed, without any doubt, that it was none other than Miss Brown's husband. She often talked to me about him, and her description exactly matched this guy. The ground beneath my feet started to shake as I realized Miss Brown has killed her husband and hid his body in our school's freezer. I was terrified, but what I discovered next scared not only me, but ended up terrorizing each and every person in our school and town people too. There was a pack of sliced meats cut in the shape of steaks and preserved inside it. Suddenly, I remembered a thing, and I could barely stand on my feet anymore. Last week, Miss Brown told me that she will cook steaks for everyone on the sports day, that she has bought some really delicious meat. My stomach started to roll. I wanted to vomit my entrails out. My head felt heavy. I couldn't believe she kept feeding us her husband's flesh all this time. I heard a voice outside, and without any more delay, I rushed to the principal's office. After hearing all this, the principal almost collapsed in fear and declared a lockdown in the school. He instructed everyone to return to their classes and stay there until he tells them to come out. Miss Brown didn't realize what was going on, but she too followed the teacher to a nearby classroom. I didn't want to make her suspicious, even for 1 second, so I acted normal amidst the spine-chilling, insane situation. After 10 minutes, we heard police car sirens and the cops arrived. The school was sealed immediately, and they arrested Miss Brown and arrested her in front of all our eyes. She just shook her head and walked away quietly with them. The entire town sunk in horror after this incident became public. No one knew what to say. Miss Brown confessed to the cops that one night her husband came home really drunk and started beating her. Out of rage and long episodes of torture and disgust, Miss Brown hit her husband with a blunt iron rod. She then kept the corpse in the freezer, and every day at night, she used to come and chop off a moderate amount of meat from his body. And next day, with that meat, well, now you all know what she did with that meat. I have become a vegetarian now. Any kind of meat makes me nauseous, and I have left the job and town as well. I heard many kids left the school as their parents denied sending them back, even after Miss Brown was taken away by the cops. I don't blame them. All the kids in the school will have a horrifying revelation of truth when they will grow up. I just wonder, how will they react after their parents reveal to them that not only they have tasted human meat, but kept having feasting on it too, for quite a long time. I was in high school then. Just like every other jolly teenage girl, I was good at making friends. Being honest, I was quite popular too. The school was at 15 minutes distance from my house. I often liked walking home after school with my friends. My house was at the end of the suburb, which was deserted than the other areas. One had to cross the kids' playground to reach there. I was quite brave since childhood, And though my friends suggested to walk me home, I always chose to walk alone. I have to agree, it was a silent walk, and during the afternoons of summer, I hardly saw people in the streets. Even the playground was empty too. One day, I was coming home after saying goodbye to my friends. It was a hot summer day. I was sweating and started to feel thirsty. I decided to stop by the kids' park and drink water from the tap, built in left, the corner side of the playground. Like every other day, there was no one in the playground. The merry-go-round stood still, but the swings were slowly moving due to the passing wind. A crow was sitting on the spiral slide, standing in the middle of the park. I walked towards the tap and bent over to drink water. When I took the first sip, I heard sounds of winds flapping away. I turned back and noticed the crow flew away. I was completely alone in the playground. Though it was daylight, things felt a bit spooky to me. I drank water quickly from the tap and decided to head back home. Just when I turned around for the second time, I saw a boy wearing a hoodie sitting on the merry-go-round. His one leg was folded, just like how we sit on the ground, and with his other leg, he was pushing the ground, making the merry-go-round revolve in slow motion. My dad and his whole family grew up here, hence, I almost knew every kid in our locality. But I couldn't recognize this boy. His face was half covered because of the hoodie, but I could see his rough lips and chin, which had a scar on it. He was at 10 to 15 hands distance from me. Out of politeness and my extrovert nature, I asked him, "Hey, all good? Are you guys new in town?" But the boy didn't utter a single word. He just sat quietly with his head faced towards me. I felt a bit awkward and said, "Okay, bye then. See you later, I guess." This time also, he didn't respond, but started smirking in a very creepy way. I could see his white teeth in his half-dark face. I took my backpack and started walking as fast as I could. Once I was off the park, I looked back, out of curiosity, but he wasn't there anymore. That boy creeped me out. I got home and closed the door, making a loud thud. My mom came rushing towards me, thinking I was feeling sick or something. But somehow, I managed to shrug that tension off my shoulder and chose not to tell my mom anything about this incident. The next day, I woke up and forgot about this. After our science class, I went to the cafeteria with a couple of my friends to have lunch. I was just about to bite my burger, just when my eyes got caught up at the corner table near the trash can. It was him. That boy I saw yesterday at the playground. Only this time, I could see his entire face. He was wearing a black shirt with a pair of gray jeans. His hair was slightly messed up, which was quite common in every outgoing teenage boy. I realized it was him yesterday by the scar on his chin. He was sitting all by himself.
If you want Spotify growth, it's important to use a strategy that works.
Scrolling his phone. Suddenly, our eyes met. His eyes were pale, and there were dark circles around them, as if he hasn't slept for a while. He looked at me and gave me the same creepy smirk again. I felt very uncomfortable. Just then, one of my friends said, "You see that boy? He's new here. I attended Spanish class with him today. He is very weird and never speaks to anyone, you know?" Another friend of mine said, "But this is midterm. It's really odd to see new admissions during midterm." I was already creeped out by this guy, and as my friends started to discuss him, that feeling grew much further. I stopped them and said, "Let it be, guys. We don't know him, so let's not assume anything. Come on, let's go eat in the school ground. I'm feeling a bit claustrophobic here." We all left the cafeteria. That day, I insisted two of my friends to walk me home, saying I wasn't feeling well. They couldn't guess the actual reason behind it and agreed to walk me home. We walked past the playground, and it was empty like always. Just when I reached my house and turned back to thank my friends, I saw that same boy at the end of the road. He was on a bicycle. He drove past the alley and ringed the cycle bell once. I walked to my room and closed the curtain. I was really scared this time. That guy now followed me home. He knows where I live. I skipped school for 3 to 4 days, stating my health is not well. I was a good kid and never made excuses before not to attend school. Thus, my parents believed me without guessing anything wrong. I used to stare from my bedroom window to check if that boy is still stalking me or not. But I saw no one, and this weird feeling reduced a bit. On the 5th day, I went back to school. It was the day of our annual football match. The whole school was gathered in the school ground. After finishing my swim classes, I returned to my empty classroom to pack my things up and join my friends at the school ground. I didn't see the boy the entire day, so I almost forgot about him. I took my backpack and decided to go through the library floor as it leads to the closest exit to the school ground. It was a long, empty corridor. The submerged sound of people cheering up was coming from the school ground. I was almost close to the door, nearly about 7 to 8 steps, just when the boy came out from the right side corner and stood between me and the doorway. Was he hiding there just to catch me at the right time? My heart dropped. I was beyond terrified. He started to chuckle and walk from left to right and then right to left in front of the doorway. Though he was walking from one side to the other, his eyes were fixed at my face. His devilish grin gave me goosebumps, and I was only left with a spine-chilling sensation. I couldn't move my leg. I couldn't walk away. He started walking towards me in slow motion. I was unable to run away or scream. I felt like someone pinned me to the ground, and I can't do anything about it. He came closest to me and whispered in my ears, "I will come back to get you once I am done. I like you." He then left the hallway. I heard from my friends that they found me unconscious on the floor of the hallway. I suffered from high fever and was bound to stay home for 1 week. When I got a little better, I decided to tell my parents about this boy and change my school. I was hell scared to go back there. Just when I was about to speak to my dad, I heard my mom talking to our next door neighbor. I could also hear cop car sounds coming from a distance. I peeked from my bedroom window and saw 3 police cars patrolling our area. As my mom got in, I asked her, "What's the matter?" What she told me still frightens me to death. She said a new family took the last house in our adjacent locality. They had a boy just about my age. Neighbors often complained about hearing fights and arguments coming from that house. It seemed like the boy's parents were about to get divorced and suffering from a failed marriage. One neighbor even said the cops thought they saw the boy's mother hitting the child on his face. It explained the scar on his chin. The house was empty for the last week, as there was no one inside it. But last night, a neighbor filed a complaint to 911, stating that rancid smell was coming from that house. The cops broke in and discovered 2 rotten corpses. They guessed it was his parents. The boy was nowhere to be found, but he left a note under the bloody knife on the kitchen table. They think the boy stabbed and killed his parents and ran away. In the note he wrote, "My work is done here, but I will come back to get what I have left behind." I shifted to a different place after enrolling for college. But as long as I was there, I hardly went out of the house. I always keep myself in the crowd. Till today, I check the road twice before leaving my house. I don't want to see him ever again.
Skywalker fan. It's crazy. Always be aware of your surroundings, man. Don't trust nobody. And if you in a situation, you ain't got no protection, you better run. For real. Skywalker gang, that's another one. Make sure you hit that follow. Subscribe.